Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
Hello everyone, Carrie here with Unicorn Company, and today we will be looking at the legendary MechWarriors 3, or as I'm calling it, the Bounty Hunter Force Pack. The reason I'm calling it that is this Force Pack is focused on the Bounty Hunter. Now, first of all, I want to say that I was a bit confused as to whether this was representative of the Bounty Hunter and their retinue, or if it was the mechs that they had piloted, and it seems to be a little of both. With all of the mechs that the Bounty Hunter has piloted as primary rides, at least in reference to the chassis, but maybe not the variant. And so I will be covering these in a roughly chronological order, even though the variants may not reflect what was available at the time. Now, before we get into the video, I want to remind you that if you like this video and what we are doing here, hit the like and subscribe buttons. And if you want to support the podcast further, you can do so by going to patreon.com/unicorncompany. Now, let's get into this Force Pack. The first mech that we'll have in the Force Pack that I'm covering here is the Warhammer. Now, this variant appears to be a Warhammer 9K, which I don't think is too important though, as I'm sure there is probably one in the Bounty Hunter's retinue in the Clan era. The reason this one is first, though, is that the first Bounty Hunter piloted a Warhammer when they were first active in the 2920s. This iteration of the Bounty Hunter operated for a short time, roughly until they collected a large bounty on the people who had robbed a bank on El Giza, and then the Bounty Hunter disappeared for about 30 years. The Bounty Hunter would appear once again in their green Warhammer, operating until 2999, oftentimes taking contracts for one state and then immediately taking a contract for the state they had just struck under contract, taking more and more outlandish and daring contracts. And we wouldn't see the Bounty Hunter again until 3014. Now that we have talked a bit about this first Bounty Hunter, let's take a look at the Warhammer that came with the Force Pack. Looking at the miniature from the front, there is almost nothing that I notice as far as mold lines, with the only one I can see being a mold line on the mech's left shoulder, which is very light and easy to clean. The weapons do have minimal burring at the end of them and should be super easy to clean up with a sanding stick or a quick pass of a hobby knife. Both sides are extremely clean as well as the back of the mech, with the only other blemishes that I can find being on the rear of the left hip and the rear on the right thigh. I really like this variant as it gives us a nice beefy Clan era Warhammer mini, and I do like the pose. Overall, I think it's really good. The mini does come with a double-sided Alpha Strike card with a 9K model on one side and a 6R on the other. We'll be starting with that 6R. The WHM-6R Warhammer is a battle mech, size 2 with a TMM of 1 and a movement of 8 inches. It is a brawler that comes in at 32 points. The mech is capable of dealing 3 damage at short and medium ranges with 2 at long and an overheat value of 1. For protection, the 6R has 5 armor and 6 structure with no special abilities. The card does have a pilot of 0 skill, pushing it up to 56 points. Overall, the standard 6R is a good trooper, but given its light armor and lack of specials, it is something that can be a bit of a risk to use, as it is more structure than armor and is at risk to ammunition explosions. The other side of the card, reflecting the mini, is a Warhammer 9K. This mech is a battle mech, size 3 with a TMM of 1 and movement of 8 inches. It is a brawler and comes in at 40 points, though the card comes with a skill 2 pilot, putting it at 56 points. The mech can do 4 damage at every range and doesn't have an overheat value. The mech's armor is a significant upgrade at 7 armor with 4 structure, with case 2 and indirect fire 1. The case 2 makes it immune to ammo explosions, and with more armor than structure, it is overall more resistant to critical hits than the other variant that comes with the mini. Now, the next mech in the lineup might cause a bit of a controversy, and that is the Griffin. It is widely believed that when the Bounty Hunter defeated Natasha Kerensky, that they were using a Warhammer, and Natasha took that Warhammer after the Bounty Hunter took her Marauder. I have found, though, that there seem to be some conflicting sources on this, as some sources claim the Bounty Hunter was using a Griffin. And the fact that the Griffin miniature is the 2N variant, which is the royal variant of the Griffin, and with the Bounty Hunter's ability to somehow source Starlink technology, points to this being a possibility. I do understand that the Bounty Hunter has a retinue, and it may have included a Griffin in it. But I would like to hope that the GRF-2N was the ride of the Bounty Hunter when they bested one of the most skilled MechWarriors in the Inner Sphere. Now let's jump into the Mini. The Mini that we get reflects the GRF-2N, and it does a spectacular job of it. First of all, they have done a really good job bringing the Royal Griffin to life here. The front and sides are well detailed and quite frankly immaculate when it comes to mold lines or anything else. This is spectacular. When we go to the rear of the Mini, there is a clip point on the rear thigh of each leg, but there isn't anything else that sticks out to me. Even with looking at the Mini from the top and the bottom, it looks super clean. The only other thing I can see when turning the Mini about at different angles under bright light, there appears to be a small light mold line on the mech's left arm just next to the shoulder pad on the front of the upper arm. Now, taking a look at the Alpha Strike card, we'll start with the GRF-2N. This mech is a battle mech size 2 with a TMM of 2 and can move 10 jump, giving it very good mobility. The 2N model is a skirmisher and runs 38 points, and if you use it with the skill listed on the card in the box, it is a whopping 70 points at skill 0. The 2N can deal 3 damage at short and medium ranges with a long of 1 and no overheat value. The mech has 6 armor and 5 structure for protection, with specials of Case, ECM, and SRM 2-2. The armor and structure combined with Case makes it quite durable, and in casual play, the SRM special ability is very powerful, as it allows you to take things like Infernos or tandem charge warheads. The other side of the card has the Griffin C. This is a clan refit of the mech and is a battle mech size 2 with a TMM of 2 and movement of 12 ground and 18 jump, making it as mobile as many lighter mechs. The Griffin C is a sniper and comes in at 45 points, and if using the card, it has a skill of 2, bringing it up to 63. The Griffin C is capable of doing 3 damage at every range and doesn't overheat. The mech does have 6 armor and 3 structure, making it only slightly less protected than the 2N. For specials, the Griffin C has Case and Jump Strong 1, which pushes it up to a TMM of 4 when it jumps. This is a ninja assassin version of the Griffin, allowing it to jump to targets with enough mobility to get into the target's rear, and even with the penalty for jumping, it can usually do this at short range and then jump away, making it almost immune to retaliation if used properly. Now, the next mech we're obviously going to talk about has none of the controversy of the Griffin, and it is probably one of the most well-documented mechs that the Bounty Hunter has ever used, the Marauder. This mech was the one used by the Bounty Hunter through the rest of their career before the role was passed on, or as some might claim stolen and given to, Michi Nakitsuna, who used the role to carry out a vendetta against Greg Samsonov, warlord of the Galadon military district, for the actions taken to dishonor Minobu Tetsuhara, and put him in a position to commit seppuku to redeem his honor for his loss to the Wolf's Dragoons. Once his honor debt had been settled with the death of warlord Samsonov, Michi's role as the bounty hunter faded away after 3030, with the Green Marauder reappearing in 3034 with the role assumed by Vic Travers. Travers would primarily use the Marauder during the beginning of his career as the bounty hunter. Now, taking a look at the Mini for the Marauder, the model is, well, a Marauder, and has all the detail you would expect on one, with no real difference between it and a Marauder you would get out of a force pack, with the exception of its pose, and the lack of a dorsal gun. It does have a hole for one of 2 optional weapons to be mounted on the dorsal mount of the Marauder, though. From the front, the Mini is pretty clean, with the only mold lines that I can see being one down the lengths of each leg. They're very slight, but do run over the recessed leg detail on the Mini, but don't appear to interfere with it, and should be easily removed. Both sides of the Mini appear to be very clean, with only a slight shade change in the middle of the torso where you can see where the front and rear of the mold connected, and maybe a tiny wisp of a mold line running along that divide. From the rear, you can't see any mold lines, and it is a nice touch that they made sure to include the leg and torso-mounted jump jets on the mech. There is a clip point at the top of each leg with not much clearance to clean them, but they shouldn't be too hard to remove. Overall, the base Mini itself is really well done, and I do like the posing and level of detail they put into it. The two dorsal gun options are also very well detailed, and the only mold line I can spot on either was along the top of the weapons housing. More something you can feel than see, and they should be easily cleaned with a pass with a sanding stick or the edge of a hobby knife. The two Alpha Strike cards we get are the Marauder from 3015 and later the Marauder from 3138. I will also be going over the 3044 one. You don't get a card for this one, and it is available on the master unit list. I'm including this one because it was a configuration that Travers converted it to before acquiring the next mech the Bounty Hunter would use. First, let's cover the two you get the card for. The first of these is the 3015 variant of the mech. This is a battle mech size 3 with a TMM of 1 and movement of 6 jump. It is a juggernaut and comes in at 45 points with an adjusted cost of 81 points if using the card with the skill 0 pilot that comes with it. It is a medium range fighter with a short of 4 and medium of 5 and a long of 3. It can also overheat 1. It has 8 armor and 6 structure and has the single special of energy, making it a hard mech to take down in an extended fight. On the flip side of the card, you get the 3138 version of the Marauder, as it is often seen in the Dark Ages when used by the Bounty Hunter and their retinue. The 3138 variant is a battle mech size 3 with a TMM of 1 and movement of 8 jump. It's a sniper and comes in at 45 points, and once again comes in at 81 points if using the skill 0 pilot. The mech does 5 damage at every range value, making it an effective fighter at all ranges with 1 overheat, allowing it to be even more deadly at medium and short range. It has 8 armor, but to retain the speed, or regain the speed, I should say, it has used an extra light engine as the structure is reduced to 3 with case. While this variant can hit harder and more consistently than the 3015 version of the mech, the reduced structure also makes it more vulnerable to being destroyed once the armor has been stripped from the mech. The last one we'll cover for this is one not included, the 3044 variant, which was what the Mechwarriors of Clan Smoke Jaguar would face as Travers took a special delight in tweaking their noses. The 3044 Marauder is a battle mech size 3 with a TMM of 1 and 6 inches of movement with jump. It is a sniper and comes in at 41 points, though if pushing it to skill 0 like the two others, it has a cost of 73, making it something of a bargain as compared to the other two. The mech does 4 damage at every range bracket with 1 overheat. It has 8 armor and 3 structure, much like the 3138 version, and this time has no case. While it is what the clans and later the Word of Blake sometimes would have dealt with, it is inferior to both versions in my opinion, as the lack of case makes it far more likely for the machine to be destroyed by an ammunition explosion. So we're at the halfway point, and before we delve into the last 3 mechs, I want to let you know about our sponsor, Fortress Miniatures and Games. Fortress is an online store that has just about anything you might want or need for BattleTech, from force packs and individual miniatures to terrain, mats, and rulebooks. They also offer products from a number of games as well as BattleTech. So check out Fortress Miniatures and Games.com for all your BattleTech and gaming needs. The next mech that would be added to the Bounty Hunter's Jay Leno-like collection of mechs would be a Mad Cat. Of course it'd be a Mad Cat. This machine was acquired during the clan invasion through Traver's encounter with the clans, and modified to fit the role and fighting style of the Bounty Hunter. The Bounty Hunter would repeatedly use this machine in fighting the clans with a number of duels between himself and clan warriors. The mech would see use throughout the clan invasion until the Bounty Hunter seemingly went silent again around 3051. As far as the mini for the mech, it physically matches the second configuration used by the Bounty Hunter, but can also represent the S configuration of the mech. Overall, the mini has a good amount of detail with some quality issues that we'll definitely be getting into. From the front, the mini looks to be very good quality, with any mold lines hidden in hard corners, though the ones on top of the weapon pods on the lower arms are very, very crisp and will actually require some kind of pass with a sanding stick or the edge of a hobby knife to slightly blunt, because they kind of stick out too much. Like, not stick out physically, but you can just see them too well. Going to the mech's left, everything looks good, with no obvious mold lines or clip points showing. Where we get into issues is the rear. While, for the most part, everything is pretty clean, there's an obvious mold slip on the rear of the mech's lower arm on the right side, where you can see the mold was misaligned, causing the outside of the arm to sag in relation to the inside of the arm. Oddly, though, this isn't reflected in the front of the arm or the side, so I'm not sure how this would happen. From the mech's right side, everything looks clean again, as you can't see the mold slip from the side. So the mold slip area is going to be a bit of a pain in the ass to clean up, as it is pretty serious, and the only way I can even think to make it look right would involve a lot of cutting and a lot of green stuff sculpting to restore the rear detail there to square. I know most people won't care, but for those of you who are, you care about the quality of that part of your miniature and making sure everything looks clean and right, I know it's going to be a bit of a bother for you. As far as the cards that come with it, I am going to include another one from the master unit list, as they did leave one of the Bounty Hunter configurations out, though to be fair, it does deviate significantly from what we have here. The first side of the card has the Mad Cat Bounty Hunter. The Bounty Hunter configuration is a battle mech size 3 with a TMM of 2 and 10 inches of movement. The mech is a brawler and has a base price of 59 points with an adjusted cost of 107 points if being piloted by the Skill 0 Bounty Hunter. The mech can do 6 damage at short and medium ranges with 3 at long and doesn't have an overheat value. It has a standard Mad Cat armor and structure of 8 and 4 with specials of ECM, Energy, Light Tag, Omni-Mech, Probe, and Recon. This configuration of the mech is really good at being used in ambushes due to its ECM, and its probe allows it to find hidden units. The mech does have the ability to call in artillery support, likely hired depending on the needs of the mission, and its lack of ammunition would make it a rough opponent to take down. The other side of the card has the Mad Cat S, which, of the cards included, most closely represents the miniature. The Mad Cat S is a battle mech size 3 with a TMM of 2 and movement of 10 jump. It is a skirmisher that comes in at 54 points, and with the skill 0 pilot, it comes in at 98. It is capable of doing 6 damage at short and medium ranges with a long of 2 and 1 overheat. It once again has 8 armor and 4 structure with specials of Case, Omni, and SRM 3-3. This is a Mad Cat built for close-in brawling. I can understand why they included this configuration, as it resembles the Mini very closely. But I feel it is odd that they didn't include the Bounty Hunter II configuration, as they both fill a similar niche. The Bounty Hunter II configuration, which you will have to go to the master unit list to get, is a battle mech size 3 with a TMM of 2 and movement of 10 with 6 jump. The mech is a brawler with a base cost of 55 points, and when piloted by the Skill 0 Bounty Hunter, comes in at 99. The mech can do 6 damage at short and medium ranges with 2 at long, and the ability to overheat for up to 2 additional damage at short and medium range. It has the obligatory 8 armor and 4 structure, with specials of Case, Jump Weak 1, Omni, and SRM-11. I can kind of understand why they didn't include it, as it is, in my opinion, the lesser of 2 mechs when compared to the S. That being said, I think there was a missed opportunity here, where they could have included arms and missiles separately, as the shoulder pods appear to be molded into the arms. So 2 sets of arms would have allowed you to build either configuration, or even mix and match if you wanted to just do something a little non-standard and custom. The next mech we'll be covering is the Marauder II, and this is a mech that the Bounty Hunter began using after they reappeared in 3064. The mech itself was given to the Bounty Hunter by General Motors Special Projects Division in what can be looked at as a marketing stunt by the company. The mech itself is a mix of Intersphere and Clan technology and was something of a testbed design. The Marauder II was used effectively by the Bounty Hunter during the FedCom Civil War. Travers, as the Bounty Hunter, would pull off his biggest job in this era with the defeat and capture of Kai Allard Leao, one of the most skilled Mechwarriors in the Inner Sphere. Once again, my overall impression of the miniature is that they have done a fantastic job. The mech is highly detailed and accurately reflects the Bounty Hunter's loadout. From the front, dead on, I am not seeing any mold lines or blemishes. Though if you lean it forward, you can see the clip point that is on the rear right wing of the machine. In going around the Mini on its left side, everything is very clean, and you can see the clip point on the mech's left leg near the top of it, which isn't visible unless you are looking for it. Though if you want to clean it up, it may be a little bit awkward to get to. Going to the rear, you can see the torso clip point more clearly on the right rear wing, and you can also see the right leg clip point on the back of the leg. This one will be much easier to get to. The mold lines on the back of the leg are barely visible, and you can only see it by turning the Mini at just the right angle and looking at the flat surfaces of the legs. When you go to the mech's right side, you can still see that clip point on the wing, but otherwise the Mini is very clean from this angle. My only real complaint here is the placement of that clip point on the small wing of the right side of the mech. While I do understand that every form of casting has its strengths and weaknesses, I feel it might have been possible to do this on a more robust part of the torso, instead of in a place that is so delicate. Now, let's look at the Alpha Strike cards that come with the mech. The first is the Marauder II Bounty Hunter. This is a battle mech size 4 with a TMM of 1 and movement of 6 jump. It is a sniper and comes in at 61 points. If the Bounty Hunter is using it, though, you have a points cost of 109 at skill 0. It gets expensive when you start putting those skill 0 pilots in mechs. The mech can do 6 damage at short, 7 at medium, and 5 at long with an overheat of 2, and is incredibly well armored with armor of 10 and structure of 8, with its only special ability being Case. This is a massive machine and is something to be feared, as even though it is slow, it is a mech that will take forever to chew through while putting a lot of damage on its target. If being used narratively with the skill 0 Bounty Hunter behind the controls, it can jump with reckless abandon while engaging and still be deadly accurate. The other side of the card is the MAD-8K Marauder II. This variant of the Marauder II is a bit more tame in regards to the mech's capabilities, and once again an odd addition, as I believe the Bounty Hunter configuration was replaced with a 6S variant, though there may be information that I don't have about this one. The 8K is a battle mech size 4 with a TMM of 1 and movement of 6 jump. It is a sniper and regularly comes in at 51 points, and if being helmed by the Bounty Hunter at skill 0 on the card, it is 91. It can do 4 damage at short with 5 at medium and long, and no overheat value. The mech has 8 armor, but only 4 structure. It tries to make up for this with the specials of ballistic resistant armor to make it more resilient, as well as case to protect against ammunition explosions. I feel like this one is sort of a bargain version of the Marauder II for the Bounty Hunter, as the Bounty Hunter variant is available from the FedCom Civil War forward, and might also be a way to lower the challenge level of the Bounty Hunter for use in narrative campaigns. The last mech we have is the Loki II. This is a Dark Age mech, and while not the first modern mech to see production in plastic, I do believe it is one of the better ones. Then again, I think its only competition at this point is the Tianzong and Regent. The Loki II, sometimes known as a Hell, is a mech recently acquired by the Bounty Hunter in the Il-Clan era. From what I understand, it isn't exclusively piloted by the Bounty Hunter, but used in a rotation with the Bounty Hunter's retinue, a tactic that makes it hard to single out which one is the Bounty Hunter when they're operating with the retinue. The sometimes pilot of this machine, I believe, is Michi Frazier, which is a false identity as far as we know. Michi seems to have gone on a tear as the Bounty Hunter against the Draconis Combine in the 3130s and stirred up some trouble between Innova Cats and Spirit Cats before handing the title to Jonathan Kamemori for a time before resuming the role. That, though, is something that deserves, well, a video on its own. The Mini for the Loki II is probably one of the best in this force pack, and I believe is something of a test balloon to see how it would go over. The mech has a ton of detail, and the design of the mech physically shows its design roots in the original Loki. From the front, the Mini is pretty good, with no major mold lines or clip points visible. If you lean it forward, you can see a slight mold line running down the length of both lower arms, but these should be relatively easy to clean. The line does continue up the arms and over some detail, but should be easy to clean up with a sanding stick. I'd be careful with a hobby knife on that one. The mech's left and right sides are both very clean, with no blemishes that I can see, and from the rear, the only thing that sticks out to me is the clip point visible on the mech's right hip ball joint. It is accessible, but looks like it might be a bit of a bear to get to. Getting into the Alpha Strike cards for the Loki II, we have the Prime and Alpha configurations. The Loki II Prime is a battle mech size 3 with a TMM of 1 and movement of 8 inches. It is a sniper with a points cost of 42 unless being piloted by the Bounty Hunter, which puts it at 74 points of skill 0. The mech can do 5 damage at short and long ranges, with its sweet spot being medium at 6 damage. The mech doesn't have an overheat value and has armor of 6 with structure of 4. For specials, it's pretty basic with case and omni. The other side of the card has the alpha configuration and doesn't have a super low skill listed. I'm guessing this isn't one the Bounty Hunter prefers. It is a battle mech size 3 with a TMM of 1 and 8 movement. It has the role of brawler and comes in at 44 points. The mech can do 5 at short and medium with a long of 4. It can hit like a sledgehammer, though, with an overheat of 3. Without the ability to jump, though, this would leave the Loki Mk II a sitting duck, and this would likely be used for a finishing blow or to be used out of desperation as a last-ditch attempt to take your enemy with you. The mech has 6 armor and 4 structure with specials of Angel ECM, Case, Flak 0*0*1, and Omni. Overall, well, the Loki Mk II is a glass cannon, whether it's the Prime or the Alpha. I will give credit, though, that with the Alpha, you do have the ability to carry out a massive Alpha strike that might take an enemy with you in a parting shot. So, what do I think of this force pack? Overall, well, I generally like it, though I am disappointed with the QC issue on the Mad Cat, and I feel like the cards could have been set up to better reflect all of the Mad Cat and Marauder configurations, as the variant that the Mad Cat Mini most closely resembles isn't even included. And the cards we get seem to be able to have accounted for all of these. Had they included the extra Marauder on the back of the Loki Prime, or Loki Mk II Prime, and the other Mad Cat configuration could have been included instead of the S. I also think the Catalyst missed an opportunity for customization on the Mad Cat, as it does appear the missile launchers are definitely part of the arm assemblies. And 2 sets of arms would have made it where you could build either configuration, or like I said, mix and match. So yeah, overall, it is a very good force pack, but it could have been much, much better. If you do want to get this force pack, once it is available, Fortress will be carrying it for $29.99, a full 25% off the retail price of $39.99. So that's it for today. I do want to remind y'all we still have spots for Western Assault. There will be links for the sign up, the rules, and the scenarios in the description below. I want to thank all of my patrons and sponsors. All of you have helped make this possible. I also want to thank Sarna, as they have a great deal of information about the Bounty Hunter condensed on their website as a resource that I used to research this video. I also want to thank the Master Unit List and the people who maintain it, as it allows me to bring the card graphics to the videos, like directly from there, and also point out several of the missing variants for y'all. That way you can see some of these machines that didn't get cards in the box. And before you go, I want to thank you for listening. And if you can, I ask you to support the channel at patreon.com/unicorncompany. Until next time, this is Carrie, signing off. I want to thank all of our patrons and sponsors. Starting off, we have at the rank of Captain, Sarah. Then we have our Mercenary Review Bonding Commission representative, also known as our sponsor, Fortress Miniatures and Games. We then have our lieutenants, Boy in a Box, Haley, and Nathan. Our sergeants, Blind Zen Archer, Gus, Faz, and Steven. And let's not forget our cadets, NB Kaiju, Jamie, and Scott. Thank all of you for supporting the podcast and the channel. And if you would like to support us, and you can go to patreon.com/unicorncompany, where we have a number of tiers. One might just fit you. So thank you all very much, and have a good day.